This story began with an office worker talking on his cell phone via SMS with a high school girl named A-chan, whom he meets at the train station every Monday morning on his way to work. When he got on the train where I-chan was already standing, a person pushed the office worker and he ended up colliding with I-chan. The worried and embarrassed man apologized to her, although she didn't mind at all and told him not to worry about it because her big breasts had cushioned the impact and greeted him warmly. After that, the clerk started to remember how he met A-chan. On a Monday, when he had no desire to go to work or to endure the pressure or the facial expressions, his boss saw him and felt that he was going to collapse from stress. I-chan was running down the stairs in a hurry to escape from a stalker who was bothering her. She stumbles and ends up hitting the office worker's head with her breasts and throwing him to the ground. Afterward, she is in the clinic and apologizes for all the trouble she caused. I-chan was on her way to the school board when the accident happened, which she only attends on Mondays. I-chan asked him if he could be her bodyguard against the bullies. He had never done that before, but it sounded like a good idea because he would have a distraction instead of his typical depressing Monday. It certainly seemed like an adventure to him, and he starts to think about I-chan, a pretty girl with big eyes, long eyelashes, and a sweet expression, sensitive and pleasant when it comes to talking. If he were a student, she would be a girl he would admire. Suddenly, she interrupts his thoughts by telling him she's already arrived at his bus stop. He gets annoyed, but I-chan tries to cheer him up by asking him why he hates going to work on Mondays, suggesting that she would like to do something to make him feel good, but at that moment she couldn't. Then she remembers something and asks him to extend his hand and gives him a shirt button, explaining that it is a lucky charm. She approaches him and tells him that it is a button that came off last week's shirt. She asks him not to lose it and continues to get off the train before leaving. She asks him to do his best this week and says goodbye, saying they will see each other next week. Chapter 2. We start with an office worker handing some documents to her senpai who looks very exhausted. She asks him what happened to his colleague next door, and he replies that he resigned. To encourage him, she tells him he can count on her with a tone of relief. He replies to her that it's comforting to know he has a kohai he can trust. The day passes for both of them working and having important meetings until they are seen celebrating. It is dinner time and she invites him to a new place that she does not want to go alone, but he refuses because his boss asked him to organize some documents for the next morning and he would have to return to work. A little disappointed, she tells him that he must love the job a lot. He says goodbye, but she tells him that if he pushes himself so hard, one day he won't be able to take it anymore. He stops and tells her that in that case, it would be a great help to have a kohai to trust. She is pleased and goes back to the office with him. They stay up all night working tirelessly and clumsily. She thinks she has damaged one of the computers, but she was just pressing the keyboard without realizing it. The night ends and they are both seen on the morning train while she sleeps on her senpai's shoulder. Chapter 3. The head of the company looks rather annoyed and dissatisfied with the work of one of his employees. He comments that no one is trying hard enough and that he wants them to come up with a plan that will benefit him, demands that they do the impossible, and that he wants them to show him good results by next Monday, and he leaves the office. The office worker who was scolded wonders if there is any way to relieve all the stress he has and suddenly sees a brochure for a gym. Now he happens to be in the gym and an instructor asks him if he is the person who came to the test session, tells him that she will be his guide and hopes to get along with him, and welcomes him to Tawawa Sports. The instructor tells him to start with sit-ups, a simple exercise that he does not hesitate to do with her, while she explains how to do all the movements. Then they move on to another exercise, reminding him to go at his own pace even though she sees that he still has a lot of energy. The instructor continues with the routine, telling him that there are many types of exercises and that he is sure to find a program that works for him. Then we see that the person who was exercising was the boss. The instructor is excited because he has done all the exercises with her. She tells him that he is taking a regimen where he does not give up the activity and would keep up. She asked him if they have to work together. The chief smiles and thanks her. On the train, we could see I-chan talking to the office worker, disappointed because he also went to the gym, but he did everything so fast that he ended up exhausting himself and couldn't use his only day off, knowing that he now has to face his boss and hand in a report that he thinks is wrong. After submitting the report, the boss surprisingly tells him not to rush his work, to keep doing it until he is satisfied, to take a step back and try to do something worthwhile, and recommends that he watch anime or play video games to relieve the stress. And if he doesn't know what else to do, he recommends going to the gym. The boss turns around and watches him with a smile, and we end with the boss returning to the gym. Chapter 4. We start with the alarm clock vibrating until it falls on I-chan's head. She wakes up suddenly after seeing the time and says that she has a committee meeting today. She does her morning routine and leaves the house. Next, she goes to the train station and sees the office worker thinking about I-chan and how easy it is for her to be the center of attention. He also remembers the moment when he asked her name and she said, "Ai-chan is fine. He doesn't know if it was a game, but he doesn't care if he was fooled." On the train, they end up in their typical position facing each other with no space between them. The office worker thinks that he would like to be the only man close to her, but he knows that she is very popular, so he finds it very difficult. Ai-chan interrupts his thoughts and gave him the button of the week. He is stunned while she thinks that he doubts that the button came off his shirt again. He jumps up and says that he did not doubt her. Ai-chan asks him if he was thinking about the boys who approached her earlier, and if he was thinking that she liked those types of boys. Then she ends up saying that would be a secret she could not tell, but in return, she will tell them another special secret that she has not told anyone. Ai-chan asks him if he notices the difference in the button she gave him, and he says yes. She shows him that this button is from the uniform of her part-time job. Her school doesn't allow part-time jobs, so it's a secret that even her friends don't know about. She tells him that he can visit her if he wants and says goodbye until next week. Chapter 5. The chapter starts with the office worker and Ai-chan at the train station. He watches her body without noticing while she tells him it's time for the summer uniform. Since he was distracted by watching her, he didn't answer, and she repeated the same sentence asking if it looks cooler. She raises her arm and gives him a glimpse of the color of her bra, to which he can only respond with a knock affirmation. Already on the train, he begins to talk about the moment they met when she was wearing a summer uniform. She tells him that she doesn't like this uniform and that she always tries to wear a vest, but as soon as the summer heat starts, she has to take it off because the fabric is so thin that it gets cold in the air conditioner. Suddenly, Ai-chan's stomach rumbles. Embarrassed, she asks him if he can hear it. The office worker answers mentally that it was impossible to hear it in this place with so much noise, but yes, he felt it in his stomach. Ai-chan tells him that she had a physical today, and that's why she skipped breakfast. He tells her that she shouldn't worry, but she replies that she is overweight for her height. She changes the subject and tells him to do his best at work. She was ashamed that she did not have an amulet for this week, and that it was probably because she was on a diet. Ai-chan starts to think and asks him to close his eyes so that he can't see anything. She starts to stretch and tries to reach his face when a shirt button comes off. Then she stops and hands it to him, finally telling him that he's quite tall. He replies that he drank milk every day when he was little. Afterwards at school, we could see Ai-chan sitting in the classroom reading when a classmate hugs her from behind and tells her that all the boys have their eyes on her. Ai-chan replies that she doesn't want to listen to this volleyball star who gets looks from boys and girls. Her boyfriend starts to grab her breasts and says that the physical exam will be interesting. He starts to guess what kind of bra she is wearing and says that it is probably a fancy one. After we go to the physical exam, we see that Ai-chan is very worried about her height. After the exam, she talks to her partner who asks her if she is worried about her height. Ai-chan approaches her and starts stretching to reach the face of her friend, who is much taller than her, just like she did with the office worker, and wonders if she will be able to do that one day. She then says that she would start drinking milk while her friend thinks that she would like to have bigger breasts, which she replies that she is fine with them. Chapter 6. We begin in a bar with a woman asking Kohai to have a drink with her on Wednesday and chat for a while, but she refuses because she's afraid. She insists that she should cheer up to get out of the routine, but Kohai apologizes and tells her that she's not interested. The woman tells her that she has a long face, or maybe is because she is loyal to her boyfriend who's far away. As her senpai listens but continues to work on her computer, the woman affirms that the distance must be hard and insists on going out again. But the senpai interrupts her and says that they have a meeting with some clients on Wednesday. After that, the woman leaves and Kohai thanks her senpai, who replies it must be hard. She assumes he says that for her friend. Time passes and we see that they have had enough to drink. Kohai looks a little tipsy and starts to tell her senpai that she feels very hot. She starts to see blurry and she starts to smell like the boss thought she wouldn't like it because it smells like cigarettes. Next, she approaches her senpai and smells him, making him feel embarrassed in front of his boss, thinking that it will affect his evaluation. She continues to talk about his smell, which seems familiar, that it smells like the senpai's cat, and then begins to say that she wants another massage. Senpai stands up and explains to his boss that it is not what he thinks. After that, the senpai carries her down the street to take her home, telling her that she has to be more careful with alcohol, which makes her completely lower her guard. She replied that this amuses the bosses and the customers. Also said that her parents tell her to be careful with men from the city. You could avoid insinuations saying that you have a non-existent boyfriend in your hometown. He tells her that he knows he should hold back a bit, to which she replies that's why she doesn't go anywhere her senpai doesn't go. He stops while she continues, commenting that she knows he is not that kind of person, and he continues walking. We move on to the next day. The Kohai is very happy because she has finished the job, and her senpai congratulates her and asks her if she doesn't mind if they go out for a while. She was surprised and replies that it's just the two of them, to which he asks if there's a problem with it just being the two of them. It seems fine to her, but she also wants to know what for. He replies that he just wants her to learn her limits and that it will help her in the future. Since he doesn't want to be in the office anymore and it's getting late, he invites her to dinner. She gives him the idea to buy some things and go to Senpai's house to play with Fumi-chan, who is Senpai's cat. She calls him Fumi, which means squeeze, because she massages her breasts. He ends up saying that she shouldn't name other people's cats. Chapter 7. It is a hot day and the office worker is at the train station upset because he has to go to work sweating and asks Summer to leave immediately. When he suddenly sees Ai-chan, he starts to think that Summer is not so bad. Already on the train, Ai-chan is sitting and tells him that she can take his briefcase since he is standing in front of her. He appreciates the gesture, puts the briefcase on her legs while she rests her breasts on the briefcase, something that seems comfortable to him. He observes and comments, "That's great." She asks if he wants to change seats, thinking that he wants to sit, to which he replies that he was talking about the briefcase. They then talk about summer vacation, which he tells her he hasn't had since she's been in high school. He gets depressed when he thinks that he won't see her on the train on Monday, and he is jealous that she will be able to stay home and sleep all day. Ai-chan tells him that she has to prepare for midterms, so she won't be able to sleep all day. Also, she said that a friend invited her to the sea or the pool, and for Maki worried and tells her to be careful with boys. She tells him not to worry, that her friend is very confident in her strength, and she is very tall and popular. She admires her. She shows him a photo, and the office worker feels a little jealous. Ai-chan tells him that this will be her first trip to the sea. She doesn't have a swimsuit, so she will have to go buy one. He starts to think about the sea, about Ai-chan in a bathing suit, and that he wants to have memories of the summer like that, and thinks that if he has a few days off from work, he might be able to go. At the office, his boss says that if they can't finish the work this week, they will continue next week. While he holds one of Ai-chan's buttons in his hand, he begins to think that she's probably at sea at that time. At that moment, his phone starts to vibrate. It was a text message from Ai-chan saying that they had to cancel the trip to the beach because of a typhoon, so she just bought a nice swimsuit and sent him a picture of her in the swimsuit. The office worker talks to the boss and tells him that he won't be able to work this weekend. He told her that the swimsuit won't be in vain, so if she doesn't mind, he can take her to the beach this weekend. Ai-chan told him that she can't give him a summer vacation, but she is sure that she can give him a good summer memory. Chapter 8. Then the office worker and Ai-chan are in the train car. He complains about the pain in his mouth and that only with the movements of the train the pain increases. She asks him to open it to observe and tells him that he should go to the dentist. The man points out that he should have gone as soon as they gave him the warning in the physical examination. Ai-chan is surprised to learn that companies also have this. He comments that they do and that the doctor always lectures about the lifestyle he leads, etc. He tells her that she probably does not listen to such things because she is young. She replies that's not true, and when she was examined, the doctor told her that she had never seen such a large shadow in the chest area. She thinks that even the doctors are confused by the size of her breasts. The train stops with a big jerk, and they bump into each other. Ai-chan asks him if he's okay, and he tells her that I don't even notice it. She tells him that the painkiller she's going to give him will make the pain go away right away. She adds that it's made with 50% kindness from the pharmacist and another 50% from Ai-chan. He thanks him for saying that it will be very effective. Ai-chan wants him to make sure that you go to the dentist as soon as possible. We happen to be in the dentist's office. She says hello and asks him to come in. She starts by lowering his back, commenting that he shouldn't worry and shouldn't be tense. She says that people comment that she has the touch to make it painless. She approaches him and begins to work, placing her chest on the patient's head. Then we return to the moment when she finishes her work and asks, "How are you?" He replies that it didn't hurt. True? The patient affirms with his head, bangs it, and she puts the mirror on him so he can look at himself. We realize that he was the boss. So he goes out and finds the clerk outside waiting for his appointment. They talk a little bit, and the clerk asks him what happened to his hair, and the boss comes up to him and says, it's a new painkiller. The dentist calls the next patient, and the clerk goes in, but we notice that he's going to see a different dentist than the boss. The boss begins to hear the complaints of his employee and thinks that this must be due to karma. Another day, we could see the dentist working on her computer. Someone had informed her that a patient from the other day had rescheduled his appointment at night, the time she works. She said that was fine and sent the next patient in. Chapter 9. We see a cafeteria and hear Ai-chan's voice asking the office worker if he wants to meet her. He stands in front of the cafe, a little nervous to enter the cafe. As soon as he enters, the first person he sees is Ai-chan, who greets him warmly and asks him if it is a table for one. He tries to talk to her, but she ignores him and continues to serve him as if she didn't know him. She leads him to his table and gives him the menu, telling him to let her know when he has decided what to order. So she went to serve another table that called her as he begins to watch her and realizes that she is more responsible than he imagined, and also feels a little jealous when she serves another customer. She approaches the table again and says that she can take their order once it's decided. He tells her doubtfully that a piece of cake. She asks him what drink he would like and he points to the menu. She goes over and tells him that her shift ends at 7 o'clock p.m. and asks him if he can wait for her at the station. He tells him of course, with great pleasure. Time passes and he eats his cake and drinks his tea and starts to think that the uniforms are great while watching another girl when Ai-chan appears and asks him if he is ready. He notices that one of her shirt buttons is about to come loose and he can barely speak to tell her, and just at that moment the button falls off. Ai-chan is in the women's dressing room and looks at the shirt and thinks that since she has plans today, she will sew it another day. She suddenly smiles. She meets the office worker and gives him the uniform at the station and mentions that she said at work that she would take the uniform to sew it at home. He doesn't know how to react to what she tells him, which she answers that she couldn't pay much attention to him in the cafeteria. Chapter 10. We see Ai-chan upset about a school marathon, saying it's painful and unfair. The office worker asks her unfair. She affirms and says that's right, that they could adjust the distance for people with extra weight. The marathon has already started and all the students are running. Ai-chan is running quite exhausted and some boys stay running next to her just to look at her. Suddenly, her star friend from the volleyball team arrives to scare all the boys around. Ai-chan thanks her and stares at her as she starts to wonder why, how. Why are you here? Her friend replies that it's because she's always practicing and the distance is a piece of cake for her. Ai-chan tells her that she doesn't talk about it and grabs her friend's breasts and says, "Am I asking why they don't bounce like mine?" Because she also has huge breasts like hers. Her friend thinks that she is finally interested in her body and tells her to finish the boring marathon quickly so that they can go to her love nest. She specifies a nice hotel in the shady streets when Ai-chan interrupts her by grabbing her ear and says that she is asking a serious question. She tells her that she should just go ahead and not move so much and try to run smoothly and fast so that they don't bounce so much. But Ai-chan doesn't understand that her friend admits that her chest isn't as big as hers. Her friend asks her if she wears the sports bra she told her to. Ai-chan says yes, but her friend doesn't believe her and starts to touch her, realizing that she is telling the truth, to which Ai-chan tells her to stop because people are looking at them. They continue to run, but her friend still doesn't let go of her chest and Ai-chan realizes that it's much easier for her to keep jogging like this and picks up her pace. Then we see the office worker taking a break and suddenly his cell phone vibrates. It was a message from Ai-chan sending a photo of her reaching the finish line of the marathon with the comment, "You worked hard." Right. So he decides to go back to work and give all of his effort in his work marathon. Chapter 11. We begin the episode by meeting a new character, a high school girl who is talking to a boy who is going to Tokyo, telling her that he's going far away and will end up working there because he is smart. She mentions to him about the school meetings, that she doesn't know when they will have one, but to make sure she doesn't miss it. She makes the statement that she will leave him speechless by becoming an amazing woman. Then he wakes up and goes in a hurry to the nearby bus station. There's a store where he enters to buy something to eat. A woman greets him and he does not realize that is the same girl he studied with in high school. He strikes up a conversation about the weather and begins to mention what he's buying. She tells him that he won't last the whole week if he doesn't eat right. She offers him a meatloaf, and he says he wants 2 of them. She laughs and tells him he'll miss the bus if he keeps saying stupid things. Then we see the man on the bus sitting contemplatively, remembering the girlfriend from his youth, thinking about how close they were since they were neighbors. She always thought about what he did and reprimanded him when he looked at erotic magazines, saying that intelligent people do not do that. If he looked at those things, he would become an idiot. The girl thought he was comparing her to the women in the magazine and wanted to take the magazine away. The man enters a meeting of classmates and sees a woman in the distance. Thanks to her special way of touching her hair, he recognizes that she is his girlfriend from his youth. She sees him and smiles at him. She tells him that she wasn't so smart after graduating and ended up helping in her father's shop. She adds that they are destined to find that special person one day, but in her case, those who approached her were only criminals. You can only look at her without saying a word, but the woman begins to ask if he didn't recognize her or if he didn't even notice the name hanging on his chest, asking him how distracted he can be. Then she asked, "Have I changed physically, or had she become more talkative?" She assumes that she can't change her personality that easily, so she asks him one last question, "Have I become more beautiful?" He blushes and nods. She laughs and tells him that she saw him enter the store after confirming that she was at the register. She comments that she doesn't like being watched, but she supposes that he finally started to see her as a woman. Then they arrive at the store and she offers him a meatloaf. He says yes, and she tells him that if he stays with her for a while, she will give him a very hot and soft one. Another day in the morning, returning to the routine, she checks on him, looking for all the things he usually buys, but she tells him that she wishes he had someone to make him breakfast. But for now, she supposes he should make the first move. She gives him his change and tells him to give it all at work. Chapter 12. Winter is coming and Christmas is approaching, but Ai is still watching Senpai and her kuhai get along so well, which makes her a little jealous because she doesn't have anyone so close to her. To make matters worse, the train isn't moving, so she tells the man that they could go to her house, taking advantage of the fact that they're close and he doesn't know what to say. Luckily, the train starts moving, but the prota notices something different about Ai, and she realizes that he sees her more than usual. Ai tells him that she is working more for Christmas because there are bonuses at that time of the year, so she's not spending that time with anyone else. She did this to reassure him in case he had any doubts, and also because she wants to remain a child since everyone wants to do adult things with her, and she prefers to wait until they are at his house to do those things. The protagonist gets nervous when he hears this, but when he touches her, she tells him that it's just a joke and that she's already grown up. The protagonist is shocked to hear this, but she only meant that she had increased the cup size of her bra, so she didn't stop playing with the main's feelings until she got off the train. Chapter 13. Days later, Kuhai wakes up on an ordinary day but remembers that she has dinner with her senpai that night, so she tries to dress up, although her clothes don't help because her shirt doesn't fit and her skirt doesn't close. To make matters worse, she's late, so she runs out of the house, attracting everyone's attention with her ample bosom and skirt. As soon as senpai sees her, he compliments her on her beautiful panties because she has not closed her skirt properly and her soul is showing, which embarrasses her so much that she thinks she will not be able to get married anymore. The senpai is happy to hear her say that because now she can stay and work there forever. Then the kuhai jokingly tells the senpai to take responsibility, which makes him super nervous. Chapter 14. On the weekend, Ai goes to clean the protagonist's house, and in the middle of the cleaning, he finds the protagonist's pornography collection, for which he scolds him because even though he understands that it is a basic need of a young and single man, on some of these CDs you can see girls with a uniform very similar to his work. The protagonist tells him that it is normal because it is erotic, but for Ai, it is not. Then the protagonist asks him if he has seen the eyes of the customers go to his curves because he has that uniform, or if there are customers who go to his place only because of the uniform, which leaves Ai without arguments, although it still bothers her. And in the end, she accidentally breaks the kid. After a whole day at work, she realizes that she has exaggerated a bit, so she waits for him outside her house and apologizes by showing him the waitress uniform in real life, because if it's her he's looking at, he doesn't care if it's erotic. The main takes advantage of the mistake, but just in the nick of time, an order arrives and Ai runs to get it, so she arrives upset with the delivery guy, who must have gotten the wrong idea of what was going on. Ai sees that it's extended again, but the main tells her that it's only an A9. Although there are busty girls on this skid, so Ai gets so upset that she unbuttons her shirt. What's most important to her is that she doesn't see the skid. Season 2. The holidays are over and a new year begins, so the protagonist meets Ai again at the train station. Since he hasn't seen him for a long time, he notices that he looks more tired than usual, but the protagonist tells him that it's just working. Then Ai gives him his weekly charm as usual. The protagonist is surprised because now there are 2 buttons, and Ai tells him that she was watching TV with her sister and saw how in the cartoon they tore their clothes just by pulling out their chests, so they competed to see who could pull out more buttons, and Ai beat her little sister. Just this year, he enters the same high school as her, so he will not let her beat him, although the protagonist does not know exactly what he means. When they arrive at school, Wu is happy that they are in the same room again, so he gropes her as usual and keeps the men away since she is alone. At noon, the little sister goes to deliver A's lunch and asks her what kind of meeting she is so early on Monday after the change of years. Wu is surprised because they don't have morning meetings on Mondays, which makes it very suspicious for Ai to go out early on Mondays. Then Ai explains to them that someone needs extra energy that day, but obviously the waifists don't understand anything. The next day, the main character leaves his house to work as usual, but we meet his new neighbors, which is his sensei and his honey girlfriend, so the main character dies of envy because he doesn't even leave the house and they already eat in front of him. Chapter 2. This girlfriend is called Megami, and while she was in high school, she pretended to hate him since she rejected his declaration of love for that reason. She swore that she would make him fall before he graduated because she believed that he was dying for her, but she pretended not to do it because of her position as sensei. Months go by, and Megami becomes a very popular girl both for the students with sports and the teachers because of the student council, although she never stopped visiting him to talk to him and make him jealous. Like when a boy asked her out, so she went to the teacher to warn him and make him realize that there are many boys after her. As much as she tried to hide it, she couldn't hide the fact that it bothered her, so Megami rejected all her suitors. Graduation comes and Sensei does not accept Megami, so she tells him to give up and not to let go of unique opportunities because he might regret it later, although it was not necessary to tell him. After all, he knows well that letting go of her is a mistake, so he starts drinking to avoid thinking about it. Just that night, Megami goes to his apartment to tell him that she can't leave him so easily and that she is no longer a student, so he wants to hear that he loves her, even if it's just as an April Fool's joke. The sensei lets it all out in his confession, which was recorded by Megami so she wouldn't forget, and even changed the time on her watch to anticipate April Fool's Day. So everything she said must be true. Then the sensei puts her in her room to punish her. Chapter 3. Days later, the senpai and the kuhai go on a business trip to Kyushu. But the kuhai is still super excited because there are many places in Kyushu they can visit, especially to eat. When they go through the metal detector, the alarm goes off, so they start inspecting the kuhai and everyone stares at her. But it was just the key that the senpai gave her, and this creates a lot of hatred for the senpai because they think they live together. When we enter the plane, we see a nice and busty stewardess who offers to close the boxes with her suitcases, but he is so hard that he keeps swinging his bus in the senpai's face. The kuhai realizes that she is having trouble, so he decides to help her, but this only increases the senpai's visual spectacle, which makes him nervous after a while, so he decides to help. Then they do their presentation that they came for and everything goes great because the customers seem interested. Then the kuhai wants to celebrate at some restaurant in the area to drink, but the senpai tells her that they better go back to the hotel and drink there. The kuhai loves this, so she starts to get ready and the senpai decides to go to the mini market to get some things. Then the kuhai goes out in a towel to ask him to wait for her. But the senpai gets so nervous when he sees her covered with only a towel that he scolds her and decides to go to sleep to calm down. The day of return arrives and the senpai looks for some souvenirs, although the only thing the kuhai wants to take is liquor to celebrate their return, which does not seem like a bad idea to the senpai, especially after so much work. Some things do not change as the kuhai returns to leave the key in his pocket, for which again all the men direct their envy and hatred towards the senpai. Chapter 4. Days later, Megami wants to go to the beach, but Sensei refuses because he doesn't want people to see her beauty in that bathing suit. Megami is surprised that he is so selfish and hasn't done anything with her in the 3 years they have lived together. But she wants to go to the beach so much that she starts to convince him. First, she tells him that she can show off her busty former student while cuddling with him and almost succeeds. But Sensei manages to refuse. Then Megami tells him that if they go to the beach, he will see her with tan lines, which causes Sensei to change his decision. A few days later, the main character meets Sensei at the train station. So they arrive home at the same time and the envy blossoms again because he is very happy with Megami. So he wants something similar with Ai, although he thinks it is impossible because he's only a bodyguard. Only writes to him because he wants to see him, and of course, the main character accepts immediately, and they agree to go to a farm where Ai wants to go. Chapter 5. On the weekend, the two of them go by car together, and the protagonist is surprised how useful it can be to have big breasts because he can put things on them, although it can also be a problem. After all, the seatbelts don't close properly. Ai sees him more tired, and it's because the protagonist couldn't sleep much. After all, his neighbors are very noisy, but he can't complain either because it's a bit difficult to talk about it. It turns out that Megami is always bothering Sensei with provocative phrases, so Ai offers to do something about it, but the protagonist tells her that it's not that bad. They arrive at the farm, and the protagonist sees 2 good reasons for having come as a caretaker of the cows, although Ai is also famous among the animals, and the protagonist believes that she also has 2 good reasons. Ai realizes what he thinks, so he changes the subject and tells her to go milk the cows, which he is unusually good at. On their way back, they pass a gas station, so the attendant cleans her mirror and gives her a handkerchief to clean inside, but the protagonist sees that her breasts are stuck together, so he doesn't dare to clean them even though there's a mirror in the way. Ai laughs a little at him, but is sad that they have to go back, so she asks him what he is going to do about it, even though she was just teasing him a little. Chapter 6. The next Monday comes, and the protagonist looks much more rested. It turns out that Sensei was sick and Megami took care of her. He even tried to call Sensei's work to let them know, but Sensei took energy from where there was none to call himself. The rest of the day, Megami took care of him instead of bothering him as usual. Then Sensei starts planning a gift to thank him. The next day, the Sensei and the kuhai meet for a drink. The kuhai likes to stay and drink with the Sensei, although she feels jealous after seeing the Sensei buy a ring because she wishes someone would do the same for her. The senpai is speechless because Megami doesn't control her words at all and gives many hints without realizing it, but she falls asleep because she drank too much. Returning to Sensei, he buys a ring for Megami because he wants to propose to her, and Megami is so happy that she starts to cry, although she's also sorry that she did not record such an important moment. Back to the protagonist, he explains to Ai that they finally moved in with their neighbors, and that's why he's had a lot of peace at night lately. Although I didn't know that Sensei is a teacher at his school, and Megami goes to visit him to make love to him because she's so happy that they just moved in together. Chapter 7. A few days later, A's mother finds a rather provocative bra on her balcony and asks her daughters if it is hers, but none of them recognize it. I thinks it's more likely her mother's, but she tells them that she doesn't wear that kind of bra since they were made. Besides, it's a pretty big cup, even for her. Then Ai remembers the new neighbor, so they go to ask her. And indeed, it was Megami who had just moved into the building where Ai lives. She invites them in for some tea, and Ai and her sister realize that she has just gotten married, but she looks quite young, which catches their attention. Megami is not shy about telling them that she married her high school teacher, so she surprises them both and asks them if they have anyone special as she did in high school. A's little sister thinks of Boo, as she finds her very attractive and tries to deny it, but immediately the main thing comes to her mind, so she exposes herself alone. Ai notices that there are no wedding photos, and Megami explains that they didn't have them because there are people who don't accept their marriage due to their age difference, but that's already solved when some time passes since she used the secret technique to convince him, which is to tempt him with how pretty she would look in a wedding dress. Chapter 8. The next day, Senpai and Kuhai are having lunch at a restaurant and they see some cheerleaders on TV who are concentrating before the game because there is one with a huge bust who shamelessly attracts the camera. then Senpai warns her not to be careless or they might record her the same way. The Kuhai is a little embarrassed because it has happened before, although it was not a video, so the Senpai thinks he is referring to the time he sent her a picture in a school uniform. He quickly changes the subject to avoid admitting that he still has that picture saved. On the other hand, the cheerleader named Cheer is surprised by all the people who started talking about her because of the video that went viral. So she tells her childhood friend that she could become a famous person if she wanted to. Days later, Cheer starts appearing in magazines, so the friend is envied by his friends for having grown up together since they were kids, even though he has no memories to envy. To make matters worse, the boyfriend notices that Cheer is being mistaken for a boyfriend in the magazines, and she simply apologizes for doing nothing to stop the rumors. Back to the senpai, he sees a picture of a cosplayer he knows well on the internet, and when he sees his Kuhai, he realizes that it is her and that this picture is what keeps her humble. Chapter 9. Days later, Senpai and his co-workers take a trip to the hot springs where they hold a ping pong championship, and he and Kuhai make it to the finals. But it is not a fair duel as Kuhai has two weapons of mass distraction that cause Senpai to be distracted so much that he ends up losing by defeat. At night, the Senpai goes to take a bath in the hot springs to sleep better, and the Kuhai has thought the same thing. She tells him that the boss has the impression that they are becoming too much alike, which worries the Senpai as they might lower his performance rating for getting strange ideas, especially since the Kuhai openly expresses that she doesn't mind looking like him. The Kuhai wants to spend some time alone with the Senpai, so they see each other after leaving the bathroom, but she means she wants to have a drink with him, which relieves the Senpai. Then they go to a massage chair, which makes the kawaii make strange noises. Then the protagonist leaves the room because his bosses came by and he didn't want them to keep getting strange ideas. But all this work to take care of his image goes to hell the next day because the kawaii says in front of everyone that he feels like going back alone with the Senpai. Chapter 10. A new Monday arrives and I tells the main character that she appeared on TV for a few seconds cheering for a game, which is very similar to what happened with Cheer. Then the main character gets scared because they might call her to make her a model just like Cheer. I is surprised that she's worried about such things, but she hasn't taken pictures with anyone yet, even though she usually takes pictures by herself, which surprises the main character so much that he stops watching, making I a little embarrassed. On the other hand, Cheer apologizes to the boyfriend in a bathing suit to show that his apology is very sincere, but he is also grateful to him because thanks to her reputation of being good to her childhood friends, her fame has increased and they keep calling her for TV shows, although she has not done any homework because of it, and so she wants him to help her by giving her his. The boyfriend refuses, so Cheer offers him the swimsuit she's wearing or a private photo shoot, which makes the boyfriend so nervous that he prefers to give her his homework before paying her with anything like that, although Cheer doesn't stop using the boyfriend factor to gain fame, as she was invited to a baseball show game and said she was so good because she practiced a lot with her childhood friend. Chapter 11. Days later, Aya races the blackboard as best she can because she can't reach the higher parts. Then Boo helps her by lifting her breasts, but because of this her bra breaks, so he forces her to accompany him to buy a new one after class. Even the store clerk is surprised to see her size, although it is not good news because being so big means a rather high additional cost. Just Megami was also buying bras, so she recommends buying made-to-measure ones as they are cheaper. I asks her if she also buys bras, but in her case, it is a little different because she is looking for a special one, so that the wedding dress fits her well because when you have big breasts, it is usually difficult to find a good dress, and when she sees them, she realizes that they will also have the same problem, although for the moment she just wants to see them support her in her wedding, which is finally confirmed. Boo is in the clouds after hearing the word wedding since she dreams of having one with I, but she did not stay thinking all the time since she also informed A's family that she exceeded the meter in breast size, so they make her a small surprise party, but she is not happy at all because so far everything is problems. Chapter 12. The day of the wedding arrives and Ai has problems putting on her dress because it is too tight in the front, but thanks to her brother, she manages this titanic task. Then they go to the wedding and see how beautiful Megami looks in her wedding dress. The whole ceremony is over and they are happily married, so they call the attention of the Kuhai who was just passing by because she wants to be dressed like that next to a man. Then Senpai calls her attention because she still has not learned not to make those comments in front of a man. After all, it can be misinterpreted as a signal. When it is time to throw the bouquet, it falls into A's hands, so Megami approaches her to congratulate her and wish her all the best with the protagonist, but she gets nervous because she thinks it is still too early for her to move forward with him. Although this does not detract from her being as cheerful or even more so the next time she sees him. Chapter 13. Days later, Ai and Boo's family go to the beach and Boo does not miss the opportunity to grope Ai while she is defenseless. But at that moment, the final boss arrives, A's mother, who is the ultimate busty in Boo's eyes. On the other hand, Megami and Sensei are in the middle of their honeymoon at the beach, so she takes the opportunity to show him her sun marks, which motivates Sensei to do morning activities. Back on the beach, A's mother applies sunscreen when the girls played and gets the idea to recreate her breasts in real size, but in the sand, which surprises Bu because they are too big to be true. A few reporters start interviewing Ai and her sister as their large breasts attract a lot of attention on the beach, but Bu throws them away as soon as she notices them, as these breasts are hers alone. Meanwhile, the Kuhai is trying on a swimsuit because her friend invited her to the beach, so she sends her a picture to see if it fits her. But it is too provocative, so she forbids her to go with it. And so it happens with all the swimsuits she has, as her large breasts make them very provocative. When she returns to Ai, she takes pictures of everything she sees, then takes the opportunity to send the protagonist a photo of how much fun she is having at the beach and invites him to go there another day. So the protagonist starts his work with the motivation of being able to go to the beach with Ai one weekend.